Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Well, that was certainly a National Hockey League game played by two National Hockey League teams. Hello there. My name is Brendan Labarre. I'm the host of Game Over Winnipeg, and welcome to the show. The Winnipeg Jets lost 2-1 in overtime, but they got the loser points, which counts for one, I guess. They got the point for not losing. Anyways, make sure we're gonna hop into the game, kind of talk about how the Jets kind of got to where they were, how they kind of really weren't in the game, kind of got back in the game, but like really were never in the game. We got a chat up here. Make sure to hop in there, share your feelings if you'd like. Absolute nuts, dog. You know what? We just gotta do this. Okay. So, here. I guess we have an additional viewer today. So, with that, let's talk about Hyperdrive Hockey. Ship into Hyperdrive and get ready to have some fun with your new source for all the biggest stories in hockey, bringing a unique style of broadcasting and commentary with a Quebecois flavor. Hyperdrive Hockey combines top-tier hockey analysis, big stories, pop culture, and a damn fun atmosphere that'll drive debate, make you think, and more. Join Max, Daphne, and Kevin every Tuesday and Wednesday for your fill-in on the hockey world. Watch on YouTube on the Game Over Network channel, or subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon. Head to our website at the Game Over Network for more. That was my dog James Bond. He's named after the dog in the Kingsman movies, the one that doesn't bark. He's not a pug though, which is, a thing. Yeah, so let me know how you think the Jets did in the chat there. And in the first, we're going to break it down. They really did start awful. There is the zone between the blue line and the ringette line, or the top of the circles, if you guys don't have ringette lines, where you kind of skated growing up. We always had them in all the rinks I played in. And you know what? I used to have a coach. His name was Rob. His name was Coach Rob Smithson, and hopefully he finds this, because when he used to coach us, he would say, "Okay, guys, here's the deal. We have this spot." He goes, "If you don't know where you're playing, if you don't know where to go, just stand here." And he would put us right at the top between the two circles. And he goes, "This zone is called the stupid pass zone. And when you stand in the stupid pass zone, if the opponents make a stupid pass, you just get the puck." Amazing, fantastic, great advice. And really, that's where the Winnipeg Jets were losing so much of the fight, so much of the battles in the first period. What they would do is they'd kind of enter the zone and they'd try to make a play in that area just to turn it over to the LA Kings, who'd come up on a counterattack. And they have players like Kevin Fiala, Adrian Kempe, and when you have guys like that, you're just not going to be able to withstand that for so long. Made a bunch of turnovers. Stanley had one, Shively had one, Ehlers had one, Velarde had a few. It wasn't a great effort by the entire team. Speaking of Ehlers, he had a really tough period, and it really kind of showed that as a team, he kind of needs help with transition on that second line. You see that first line, it's kind of like a joint effort to kind of get the puck into the zone. And with Ehlers, like they were really trying to make it a clean entry from that top line. And with the second line, it seems like it's either Ehlers or it's nothing. And Ehlers is an elite guy at transitioning, but when there's no other option, everyone on the ice knows who to close in on. And when we talk about that zone right there, that zone between the top of the circle and the blue line, it was really evident in how indirect the Jets were and how that was causing turnovers. And I usually, we wouldn't focus too much on the goal that was called back, but this time I think it really exemplified that the way that the LA Kings were handling that zone, that area of the ice, the highs in the offensive zone, was so different from the Jets. So on the called back goal, the LA Kings cross line, former Winnipeg Jets legend Trevor Lewis, he just shoots the puck. He enters the line, just shoots it, goes in, and that starts to cause some chaos. So when they go in forecheck on the D, Dylan Sandberg kind of comes around the net, and when he does that, it kind of hopples over a stick, causes some chaos, goes around, rims around to the defenseman who just shoots it on the net. Or again, a really just direct play, and there's a bunch of screens there. And the LA Kings are able to just score an easy one. Just one that Eric Carmen should have had. There was some screens there, but eventually it was called back. no point, but something to learn, something to kind of hold on to on how this game was going to be played in that area of the ice. And then if it kind of also made you realize as the game was going on, the LA Kings were just boxing them out. They were stopping all the players. They were stopping so many passes. And if the Winnipeg Jets want to win this game, they needed to make the LA Kings scramble. And it was just something they just weren't really going to be doing. And then there was other things, after that called off goal, more turnovers, Velarde, Ehlers, Scheifele. And then Ehlers had a turnover that led to him having to save a goal, just diving in the crease. And then also a DeMello penalty, which fortunately led to nothing. And it was just kind of a brutal first period. And it made me reminisce of something that a college professor said to me the other day. She said, okay, you know what? Do you know what my New Year's resolution is? It is, we are going to be chopping the wood and carrying the water this year. Just enjoying the process, putting in the work, but having fun doing it. And it felt like the Winnipeg Jets, they wanted kind of an easier time. They didn't want to go and to take the shot, get the rebound, and things like that. They wanted to just have an easier time. But I was just thinking, okay, we got to dump it in. We got to trust the forecheck that is so improved this year. We got to chop the wood. We got to carry the water. So, and then they kind of had a little bit of a spurt at the beginning of the period where they were kind of able to do it. But then eventually it was kind of brought back to our regular scheduled programming. And then the LA Kings, they just score on a goal where Alex Turcotte enters the zone on the left boards of his side of the offensive zone, is able to win a battle down low, rims it around to the D to D, and then Turcotte just evades DeMello. DeMello's kind of trying to stay too close to the net, and DeMello is able to get Turcotte is able to get a high tip off of a point shot, and it just was pretty brutal. Just another example of the Winnipeg Jets just not getting those sticks, and those have been kind of a common trend this season of the defenseman not getting on the guy. And just with Dylan DeMello, it's like you're the guy who's supposed to have it. You're the defensive D out here. That's kind of your gig. And then Scheifele takes a couple of penalties, a little brutal. It's been a pretty brutal game from him up to this point. And then we get to the third period, and in the third period, the Jets looked like they were really chopping the wood and carrying the water, enjoying the process of the game. They just come out flying, they're shooting, and Ehlers is still really struggling. Again, I think he needs some help in transition on that line. He's so good at it, but just he kept on trying to carry it in, and the LA Kings, as soon as he gets into that high ice, they just strip him from it, they collapse on him, and he just doesn't have someone with him there to help him out. Then Velarde draws a penalty, Ehlers draws a penalty, and then the LA Kings have this really aggressive, really it's almost impressively aggressive, just how much they attack the puck carrier at all times. And the Winnipeg Jets really took advantage of it when they just kind of started shifting. They start moving around, having all this movement, and then Kyle Connor gets it. He's able to get it to Velarde, and he shifts it over to Scheifele to just put it in the net. Just a beautiful goal. And I think that's something that was really lost here. Nikolai Ehlers was getting very frustrated by this point. You could tell the type of shots he was making on the power play to start this one. He just rips a slap shot, which is something he usually tries to do, but it felt like he had a little more oomph in it. He went and rocked a guy behind the net, which is really fun to see out of him. Nikolai Ehlers, noted guy who fights sometimes, a fighter of the Ryan Getzlaf, formerly of the Anaheim Ducks, and it's just something where he just looked very frustrated. But one thing you notice about this play, and one thing that makes Nikolai Ehlers, when he's on the power play, it's so apparent, it's that he's constantly moving. When he moves to the corner, Gavrikov kind of expects him to get the puck, so he drags him into he also drags Gavrikov into the corner, which opens up this pass for Velarde to give to Scheifele. And it's just, Nikolai Ehlers has been doing this so long, and having him in the middle, having him in that bumper spot, it's less about his shot, but more about the movement that he creates and just how lovely it is to have him out there. And then we have to talk about the, honorary Vladimir Nemeskov looks hurt. He takes a shot, he blocks one, and he goes off the ice. He looks like he can't put weight on it. And I wrote on my notes, I have a whiteboard behind here, constantly while I'm looking up, and I wrote on it, okay, Vlad's hurt. He looks hurt again. We'll see him in Colorado. The guy didn't miss a shift. This is just Vladimir Nemeskov's MO. He always looks hurt at one point in the game. And then just always comes back. And Yeah, and he comes back the next shift, and Philip Deneau was just really there's a point in the shift where Philip Deneau is cross-checking him. Looks like Vladimir Nemestikov was just kind of running his mouth at him, maybe doing something he shouldn't have, playing a little dirty, but that's why we love Vladimir Nemestikov. He came from a winner in the Tampa Bay Lightning. He went to the Cup final with Dallas. Just a super smart player, just a guy who knows how to walk the line in the game. Josh just got here, so was it too many men? I don't think so. And then the Jets get to OT. They had Kyle Connor is buzzing. He goes out there, but the Scheifele and Connor take too long of a shift, and it's something that we said a couple of times this year. Mark Scheifele tries to get back, can't do it. The 2-on-1, Adrian Kempe scores the goal, which kind of beats the Winnipeg Jets. Unfortunate, and the Winnipeg Jets lose the game 2-1 without scoring an even strength goal. Really stinks. So let's get into the second period. We kind of run down the game, but now we're going to talk about more like season-long things that kind of cover the length of the season. I want to talk about being smotherable as a team. It seems like the Winnipeg Jets are. I want to talk about Cole Perfetti, and I want to talk about the left side of the defense. So if you have any opinions on all those things, just so you can shoot them in the chat here. Look at this. This is where, we got to talk about Eric Comrie too. And look at all of these people. Look at Josh. Look at myself typing in here. You can be a part of the show. And if you want to be even bigger part of the show, you can join our Discord. You can just like and you can subscribe. Super easy and free ways to kind of be on support the channel. And also, you can subscribe to our Patreon. We got tiered systems that's really being reworked. Andrew Berkshire, CEO, is just really heading that up. And if you go there, you can check out the tiers. There's also a free tier, which it's free, guys. It's just like liking and subscribing to this video right now. So let's get to the second period. And in the second period, let's start with just kind of the lessons that you can learn from a game. I think one thing that the Winnipeg Jets have been really good on is, especially in the early part, it just seems like, we're in the dog days of the season. Early in the season, they were super good at picking up on things and taking them game to game. What's Comrie's record? Comrie is now 3-7, I believe. This is Googleable. Comrie is he is he was 3-6 coming into this game. Now he's 3-7. It's tough out there for the guy who is just trying to make a living. And one of the things with the lessons, the Winnipeg Jets early in the season, a game I always mention is the Seattle game, where they looked like they were very vulnerable on the rush. And then the next game when they played Colorado, who tried the same sort of thing against the Jets, the Winnipeg Jets seemed to learn from that. And they were able to take things from them. And I think that's so important because what the LA Kings did to the Winnipeg Jets today, where they just dominated that area of the ice, the area between the top of the circle and the blue line, that's something they did to the Dallas Stars like a couple months ago, where they were just able to play the game and dominate that area of the ice. And you really think that hopefully when it comes to this game, it's not about that they lost. It's what can you take away from this? Because if you can't just go into a series, like let's say LA falls to the second wildcard spot or something happens, something crazy, you play LA in the conference final. It's, for me as a fan, it's not good enough if you come out to me and you just were like, wow, can they really smother us? I think as a player on a team or a coach on the team, you have to be able to tell me why they smother you and how you are looking to overcome it. Like, I don't think that it's about them smothering you. It's about being smotherable. And I think with this game today, it was just about being more direct. It was about more just getting pucks on net, finding those greasy ways to win. The third line in this game was, especially Alex Iafallo, was the best line by a country mile. It's just because they were playing so much more direct. And I think that's something with Alex Iafallo versus Mason Appleton. It's been so apparent that directness in their game has been so well. They cause turnovers, they cause havoc. And maybe if they were able to spread those guys across the lines. I think when me and my buddy were just texting back and forth, me and my friend of the show, Fife, if you've been here around enough, he says these things. I was saying that maybe they should try and get all the three of those guys on different lines just to kind of get the things going something like Connor Scheifele and Nino Niederreiter, maybe go Ehlers with Velarde with Lowry in the middle, and then reuniting the Perfetti, Nemestikov, Iafallo line, just so that they have kind of more of a mix, kind of some of that more directness that they can do to kind of get things rundled around. Okay, here we got some more comments. We got Coach Dad. Should we be concerned with the way the Jets play against a smothering team going to the playoffs? What adjustments should be made? Yeah, I think we were just talking about that. Just being more direct, getting pucks, causing chaos. When the Jets were being successful, they were just shooting, they were getting things around. And because the middle of the ice was not open, and the LA Kings are not a team that runs around. They're not going to run around chasing you. They're going to play a man-to-man. They're always going to have one guy between one Jets player and the puck, and they're good at running picks. They're doing all these things. But what you need to do is just be direct, make them go on their heels, shoot the puck, rim it around. The Jets are trying some nice cross-ice dumps to just get the LA Kings spinning, because if they're going to stick on the inside of their box, you got to get them moving. You got to get some chaos going. And without that, you're just going to be making passes into skates and making passes just at guys, and they're just going to be able to like knock it off when you're trying to get guys to the middle. Instead of having a guy like high in the slot, which the Jets really like to do, they're like going around the net and passing it up to Kyle Connor. Maybe Kyle Connor's going to get down lower. Maybe Scheifele and Connor need to be circling the outside while Velarde's in front of the net, as opposed to Kyle Connor kind of hanging on high ice, because you're not going to be able to make that pass to him, but you might be able to get in it to Velarde for a tip, and Velarde can always take that step out for the shot if you need to, or he gets to get the high tip just like Turcotte got on the Jets. Jeff Campbell says, no, Gabby was at the boards, needs to be 5 feet or more. Yeah, just about the what's it called? The too many men there, I'm assuming. For a second, I thought we were talking about the PK where Ehlers was able to pull Gavrikov away from the puck carrier and Velarde. All right, what else? Perfetti, I think, had a really nice game today. Speaking of direct, I think as the game went on, he really took some coaching and was able to play a bit more direct. He shot really nice. He's really good along the boards. There was a time where Kevin Sawyer, I don't agree with Kevin Sawyer all the time with his analysis. I thought he was spitting today because he was kind of saying a lot of the same things that I did. And we're like, hey, we got to get more direct. I think that one thing that you think about coaching kids, right? And this is like an aside, but you think about coaching kids, and there's things you need to do when you're coaching kids that are different from when you're coaching like teenagers, adults, things like that. And it's just doing the simple things, going up the boards, because when you throw it in the middle of the ice, the things are going to be turned over. So I'm just trying to think of like what my dad told me as a coach, and I think those things would be successful, like go up the boards as opposed to the middle, kind of roll out, play along the boards. We're an up the boards type of team is something he would always say. And I think with Cole Perfetti, one of the younger players on the team, he looked like he was really embodying those moments. He was like, okay, I'm in front of the net, this is where goals are scored. Okay, now it's in the corner, I'm going to go there, I'm going to rub this guy out, I'm going to peel off of him. I'm going to make these solid passes. I'm going to make these solid plays. I'm not going to be too fancy. I'm going to dump it in. He just played like a really nice, simple game, which is something that you really like to see out of a guy with the talent ceiling he has. And you can really see him kind of evolving. If he doesn't become a more high-octane offensive player, he's the type of guy that's just so smart that he'll always have a place in this league. And he just had a really nice board play. And the other day we talked about him maybe needing to be a little bit more physical to bring him to the fight. I thought he brought some of that today. And while he didn't have any points today, like who else did? No one scored a 5-on-5. And then we can talk about Eric Comrie. Eric Comrie's having a real tough go. Eric Comrie has played 10 games. He has won 3 of them. He's now 3-7. He's got like league average stats in terms of like save percentage and goals against average. And it's just with him coming to this game, you really feel for the guy, because with the way the Winnipeg Jets played Colorado last time on the second half of that back-to-back, you can tell that they get up for these games against Colorado. And with Eric Comrie starting this first one of the back-to-back, which they never do, Hellebuck always starts the first half, you were kind of thinking like, man, the Winnipeg Jets are doing Eric Comrie really dirty, because it feels like, especially on Connor Hellebuck nights, that they're moving past this game in the dog days of the season, because let's face it, not all games are equal. You really need to pick and choose your effort sometimes. And I think you need to find ways to pick yourself up in the middle of a season. And that's one of the ways the Jets are doing it, is just by focusing in on these Colorado games and beating those teams. And it just really sucks for a guy who only let in one goal. Maybe you count the other one. If you want to talk about his performance, but he only allowed one goal and he kept the Jets in the game all the time. He's the reason why the Jets got 1 point, because in reality, they don't score when he's in the net, and they didn't score any even strength goals today when he was there. Josh says, do you think the Jets should give Comrie more starts to build his confidence and give Hellebuyck more rest? What is more important, getting first in the division or getting rested number one in the playoffs? I completely think that they need to give Comrie more games. It really felt like this homestand, because they're in the middle of a 8 games to homestand. It really feels like Eric Comrie was just being pushed aside because like, we got to get Hellebuyck 300 wins. We got to get him 300 wins. And then they were losing against teams. Like, they lost against the Ducks, and they're like, that should have been the one. That should have been the one where we got it so we could celebrate it here. It felt like they, when it felt like they bought him they bought him that nice art and doing all this stuff, and they had this video, and they were just so excited to give it to him that they really were just trying to push for these starts. And while we were here, while we were facing teams like the Ducks, like those are the games that should be Eric Comrie games. And I completely think that the Winnipeg Jets, like in terms of that, is getting first in the division is definitely not as important as having a rested number one in the playoffs. They've been faltering a little bit. They're like, since they went 15-1, they're what now, 28, 12-3. That's about 14-14. So they've really kind of tapered off into being a 500 team in those games. And Eric Comrie is like not played a whole lot since kind of the beginning of the season. They really are restricting him to back-to-backs, presumptuously to get so that Hellebuyck could have gotten this record. And hopefully now that he's gotten it, we can just kind of, not the record, the milestone, but hopefully now that he's gotten it, we can kind of rest him a lot more and hopefully get even more performance out of the games that he's in. Because the Jets really got to get back on track here. They're not winning as many games as you would expect from being a top 5 team in the league right now. And then let's talk about the left side of the defense. With the left side of the defense, we got to talk about Morrissey coming back because he missed the last half of the game. He only played about 12 minutes until he was hurt for the rest of the game, left the Jets with 4D. We got to talk about Sandberg's first game back, and we got to talk about Logan Stanley. So when it comes to Josh Morrissey looked like he didn't skip a beat. Josh Morrissey is just consistently a top 10 defenseman in the NHL. He looked like he didn't have any of those big mobile moments tonight, but like who really did for the Winnipeg Jets? He looked very fine. Like with Josh Morrissey, it always feels like, what else can you say? Because he's just the guy who is just so wonderful to have on your hockey team. There's definitely not 32 number one defensemen in this league, like what you'd consider a number one defenseman, and the Winnipeg Jets are pretty lucky to have one, and especially when he's able to bounce back the way he did. Dylan Sandberg, the first period, not the greatest we've ever seen Dylan Sandberg play, but as it kind of went on, the game kind of unfolded. I really enjoyed watching him on the second penalty kill on Mark Scheifele's first penalty. He was able to make some really nice plays. He was extending his stick, just like showing some really nice defensive prowess in terms of being a wonderful hockey player. He's just so smart, and he's just such a nice top 4 guy, and he's just such a nice complementary piece to Neil Pionk on that bottom pair. And I forget what his contract is. We're not doing the defenseman halfway point today, because the defenseman halfway point grades today, because that's we just have so much to talk about today. We'll probably do that tomorrow. But with Dylan Sandberg, just a nice consistent piece on that back end. And then Logan Stanley. I just feel like the Logan Stanley narrative is a little boring. You want to see his money puck thing from last game? There you go. He didn't have a great game last game. He really needed a nice rebound here. And it just feels like with him, he just so many turnovers, so many things, so many just blatant mistakes. And I think one thing that you're really starting to notice is they're not trusting him to move the puck, which is becoming very frustrating, because it seems like he's not allowed to make the breakout pass. He's not allowed to do certain things on the ice. On the penalty kill, sometimes he needs someone to get it out for him. There's a time when he made a 2-foot pass when he can just shoot it out himself. And it feels like that restriction is going to be so restrictive coming the playoffs, and it's starting to get really frustrating in terms of how this roster is being constructed and how they're really leaning on certain people as opposed to never changing kind of their lines or their pairings or anything. One example that we talked about, so they're leaning on whoever Logan Stanley's partner is to do all the puck moving, and so like Dylan Coghlan, who hasn't played too many NHL games this season, as opposed to the flip side, Nikolai Ehlers, where Nikolai Ehlers is on his line and he's so good at transition compared to the other two that they're really just kind of focusing on him to do all that work, and it's really catching up to them. And then let's go into the third period here. The third period is where I can kind of talk about wherever I talk about. We're going to talk about Hellebuyck's milestones. We're going to talk about the quarter century team that the NHL put out for the Winnipeg Jets. And if you have any opinions on those before we hop into them, let's hear them. I'll let you type. I'm on a little bit of a delay. So I'm going to talk about I'm going to do the ad read real quick while you guys can type away your stuff. Game Over has you covered after the game. But in order to get ready to watch the Jets, you've got to get your game on too. Game On Winnipeg is a short-form daily news podcast covering everything you need to know about the Winnipeg Jets. Debuting soon, get all your Jets news in under 10 minutes, Monday through Friday, on the Game Over Winnipeg YouTube channel and in podcast form, which you can find wherever you get your podcasts. You know, Apple, the other one, Spotify, all those places. Definitely a place you can find Game On Winnipeg when it appears. Hosted by Harrison Lee, who's also a really good follow on Twitter. You should follow him. X, whatever. I'm not calling it X. All right, period 3. Let's talk about Connor Hellebuyck. Connor Hellebuyck, my favorite Jet, reached a milestone or 3. He reached 500 games this season, 40 shutouts, and 300 games with him. And one thing you really notice about these celebrations is the Winnipeg Jets really know how to do them, right? They could have just had him wave for his 40th shutout, wave for his 500th game, and then done this kind of separately. They waited so they could do it all the time. They could really give him flowers. They had the jerseys made, all that stuff. And it really brought me back to earlier in the season when they did the same kind of giving the flowers to Brian Little. And I just love how they do these. Like, you can criticize the Jets for a lot of things, and maybe they're loyal to a fault, but they really do treat the players on the team pretty good. They kind of, and with that, like, Connor Hellebuyck, for who he is probably, in my opinion, he's the best Winnipeg Jet of all time. There's a statue of a guy downtown Turner Square named Dale Hawerchuk. And when it comes to an absolute superstar, someone who is the best in the league at his position, not even like once, like year over year, I believe Connor Hellebuyck is the best goalie in the NHL. And he's always in the Vezina conversation. 2018, he was a finalist. 2019, he won. He won last year. He's probably going to win this year. We are truly watching something special in this guy. He is someone who came up into the league. He was drafted in the 5th round, 2012. And when they drafted him, I love saying this, like, the Winnipeg Jets didn't even know about him. They went to that game, and the game where they first saw him, and they were scouting the other goalie, and all they came away with is that this guy was perfect. Connor Hellebuyck is my favorite. My favorite Connor Hellebuyck stat is that Connor Hellebuyck in college lost as many games as he had shutouts, which is absolutely incredible, super perfect thing. Yeah, okay. Hello all, dropping in from Game Over Montreal because I really do love a goalie, and Hellebuyck kind of rocks. Yeah, Hellebuyck is best goalie in the league right now for sure. Thanks, Kay, for stopping by. We were just talking about him, and just in terms of Winnipeg, we always talk about not being able to have players in here, and just having a player of Connor Hellebuyck's stature, Connor Hellebuyck's ability, and Connor Hellebuyck's presence, and have him commit to Winnipeg last year, sign that 7-year deal. It's just something that for him to be a lifelong Jet, hopefully he sticks around his whole career. Super wonderful to see. Just as a small town, as the smallest kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Markets. The smallest market in the NHL, having a guy just as dominant as he is, the best player at his position, it's just unreal to have. And he really does. The team is his team. He really is what makes the Jets go. And just hopefully in the playoffs, I certainly believe in Colorado that they kind of let him down a little bit. They just collapsed. They faltered. They folded against that rush that they were to do. And it feels like this year they're really focusing in on how to defend that and how to kind of take steps towards not being able to crumble like that. We talked about earlier in the podcast what makes you smotherable, what lessons can you learn from that to adapt, and I think they're doing the same type of thing for the Colorado Avalanche to prepare to play them, and I think we're going to see a little bit of that tomorrow. And with that, Connor Hellebuyck, just what else is there to say? Best goaltender in the league. And we'll talk about one more thing before we get into our fourth period. Let's go over the Winnipeg Jets quarter century team. This is something the NHL put out because we are 25 years into the century. So they kind of went around, if you haven't seen these, and looked at all the teams and said, hey, who are your best players in the first 25 years of the 21st century? So for the first team, if you're on audio, if you're listening to the podcast in audio form, it was Ilya Kovalchuk, Mark Scheifele, and Blake Wheeler for the forwards. Dustin Byfuglien and Josh Morrissey were the D, and Hellebuyck was the goalie. Hellebuyck, no contest, absolutely no competition. I think Morrissey and Byfuglien, also no competition. I think it would have been really funny if they put like Chris Chelios, who played for the Thrashers, or just someone random like that, maybe on the second team, but they didn't. They made a pretty good list. And then on forward, Mark Scheifele, the first ever Jet draft pick, best forward to play here like consistently. Besides the other guy from the Jets, Blake Wheeler in his prime. People forget how good Blake Wheeler is, and I think that was really apparent to me when Kevin Sawyer said that he would, spoilers, Kyle Connors on the second team, he would flip Connor and Blake Wheeler. Blake Wheeler in his prime was like a top 5 right winger in this league, and he didn't have the points. He would have like 70 points a year, but in terms of advanced stats, in terms of how much he had pushed play with guys, and in terms of just the lack of line mates he had, like for his prime, he was playing with like Little and Wheeler. He had about like 1 year before he really started to dip off, where he had Mark Scheifele in 16-17, and then as he kind of fell off, he became this like power play weapon, and his 5-on-5 like play started to kind of go down a little bit. But with Line A on the power play, and they really figured it out with Kyle Connor and Paul Stastny kind of taking that down low position. He became this 51 even strength point guy, 40 point power play guy, just someone where his shot wasn't the biggest threat on the power play. He did score some power play goals, but a guy who was able to have elite vision and really change his play style to become an elite playmaker from a power forward. In the first few years of the Jets, you'd see him like drop the shoulder to a traditional power forward move, and then he became this elite like just skill guy. And his 5-on-5 metrics kind of suffered. He was just so good. And then Ilya Kovalchuk, the best video game player of all time. I have no complaints with him being there. If you look at his stats, especially his Thrasher stats, like point per game before he came back and played with the LA Kings, and then the Washington Capitals and Montreal Canadiens, just an absolute guy where it's kind of like, okay, no one really compares to him. I don't even think like Kyle Connor can kind of do whatever he wants, but unless he has a Maurice Richard, that's something that Ilya Kovalchuk will have on Kyle Connor as a goal scorer. And then if we go to the second team, same sort of thing. We have Ondrej Pavelec, and I think like tenure is a lot of these things. Some people are saying like, I saw Garrett Hull, great Jets pick, saying that maybe it should be Kari Lehtinen. I'm not sure. It felt like he didn't have enough tenure there, because I think tenure is really important for these things. Ondrej Pavelec, Jacob Trouba, Toby Enstrom, like I think that's what you have to do. It's a pretty good shoe-in. They could have maybe like flirted with like a Neil Pionk here, but I think that Jacob Trouba just had a bigger impact. He's a better player than Neil Pionk is. And then on forward, you got Brian Little. I think that's a really good one. Nikolai Ehlers and Kyle Connor. And I think one thing that just made me a little sad when it came to this Winnipeg Jets team, this quarter century team, is just Patrick Laine should be here. Not in terms of his play, not in terms of his what he did for the Jets in his limited time, but his time, it just feels like it shouldn't have ended. And it would be, there's always that in your mind of what it could have been. I'm glad he's finding success in Montreal at this time. Just makes me a little sad. Love that guy. All right, and with that, we will head into the fourth period. This is the part of the show where you can type in questions, ask me anything, ask me about hockey-related things, non-hockey-related things, and just kind of anything you want. This is like a really part of the show where you can put your stamp on whatever you want to talk about. And also, let's talk about What better way to support something you love than rocking it as clothing? Game Over Apparel's line has dropped with 3 unique designs. Whether you feel the nostalgic pull of our retro skater design, want to make a statement with our established design, want to wear your love of goalies proudly with our live and die by the goalie design, we need to put the QR code on screen so that you can see it. Boom, boom, boom. We're putting chat off screen for a second. Or you just need another coffee to get through the winter. I love the mugs. Everyone knows I love the mugs. The mugs are the best part of each and every one of my days, of my shows. Well, we got you covered. Designed by Brady Chalice from Game Over Winnipeg. Use the QR code and stream now. Look, it's there. To go to our store, look through our apparel shop, and help us rebuild local sports media in Winnipeg while repping your community. All right, so we can take these down. You see them. Well, you know what? Maybe we can just move the hoodie down a little bit. How's that? Oh, we don't want to move chat. You know what? That's just something that's not going to happen, I think. All right. Kay says, we love and treasure him, I promise. Yeah, I hope you better in Montreal. It looks like he looks pretty pumped when he's scoring goals. Enjoys like some of the younger guys there. And it's been pretty good. I'm just glad that it's working out for him. Because, yeah, really nice. Oh, we're going to put the 4th period thing on too. And while I'm kind of waiting for stream to catch up to real life, do you know what's a really good book? I've been reading The Franchise by Craig Custance, a really good hockey book about just where he goes and talks to GMs, and he just talks about their philosophy, talks about stuff. There's a chapter on Julien Brisebois. There's a chapter on Kyle Dubas. There's one on Lou Lamoriello, which I was shocked that he would accept this interview to be written about in a book. One of the funnier things is that there's someone sitting in there with him to make sure he doesn't, in his old age, doesn't say anything funny or like something off-putting, something that should be taken back from the record. Don't want to spoil the whole book, but one of my favorite stories from the book is they're talking to Brian McClellan, GM of the Washington Capitals, and after the 2017 season where they lost to Pittsburgh for the 2nd time in a row, did you know that Nick Backstrom requested a trade? Crazy, right? And then Brian McClellan said, no, we're not going to do that. Ted Leonsis wouldn't let it happen, actually, as well. And then when they were celebrating the cup win in Vegas, Nicholas Backstrom was holding the Stanley Cup, and he was crying, and he went up to Ted Leonsis, and he said, thanks for not listening to me. I'm so happy, blah, 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 blah. And it was just so lovely because at the end of that 17 season, they really thought they couldn't beat Pittsburgh. They really thought they couldn't go over the hump. And it was just, it was fun. It's a really good read. You should really, maybe I have some things noted in there that I want to bring to the show. Just little snippets that kind of go with team building philosophy and stuff. And I think that will be fun when we get there. I got to read more of it though, before we can kind of get into that. And it seems like we don't have any questions from the class. That's all right. So we are going to be back tomorrow. And if you have any questions, we can answer them there. You can put them in the comments below too. If you're watching after the fact, if you're watching this past the live stream, we're going to be back tomorrow. Tomorrow, the Jets play Colorado on Hockey Night in Canada. The game's at 6 p.m. an early game. So our show will be at about 8:45. And with that, it's going to be a good one. It seems like the Winnipeg Jets are really going to be getting up for it, especially if they're not playing Connor Hellebuck on the first half of a back-to-back. So it should be a really exciting game. Also, national broadcast. So the chat's going to be bumping, you know? People can just come in here, have a great time, talk about Connor Hellebuck being the best goalie in the world, talk about him having 300 wins, like what was he, the 3rd fastest goalie to ever do it, the best player in the National Hockey League, whose name is Connor. I said it into a microphone. And with that, we'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching Game Over Winnipeg.